The waves rose like mountains of fury, and I felt every drop of salt burn my golden skin. The winds howled like lost spirits, and in the midst of that infernal storm, I saw men fighting against death. Their fragile boats danced like dry leaves on the raging sea, and their cries were lost in the roar of the waters. It was at that moment I understood. It wasn't enough to merely exist between the sweet and the salty. I had to act. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a determination born from the depths of my being. It was time to weave the net that would change everything. My name is Oxenmare, and I am the daughter of waters that choose no sides. I was born at the meeting of river and sea, in that sacred place where sweetness mingles with the wild strength of salt. From a young age, I always knew I was different from the other oxens. While my sisters danced in crystalline rivers, I felt the call of the tides, that ancestral force that pulls and pushes, that brings and takes. I grew up listening to the stories of fishermen who sailed along the coast. They spoke of storms that appeared out of nowhere, of treacherous waters that changed moods like a woman in love. But they also told of a golden light that sometimes appeared on the horizon, guiding the lost back home. I smiled quietly, knowing that light was a part of me, an extension of my love for those brave men who challenged the ocean every day. Life in the brackish waters taught me about balance. It wasn't just about sweetness, as my river sisters believed. Nor was it only about brute strength, as my cousins of the deep sea preached. It was about finding harmony amid chaos, about being a bridge between different worlds. Every tide that rose and fell was a lesson in impermanence, in the need to flow with change. For years, I watched the fishermen set out at dawn, their small boats defying the vast blue. I knew each one by name, their families, their secret fears. There was Tome, the eldest, whose eyes carried the wisdom of someone who had seen storms that could break mountains. His white hair danced in the wind like sea foam, and his calloused hands told stories of a lifetime dedicated to the waters. Joachim was the youngest, full of dreams and reckless courage. His eyes shone with the same intensity as the sun reflected on the waves. And his laughter echoed across the beach like celestial music. He reminded me of myself when I was younger, when I believed that wanting was enough to bend the world to my will. Among them were dozens of other men, each with his own story, hopes, and fears. They were fathers, devoted sons, passionate husbands, all united by the same ancestral dream of wresting sustenance for their families from the sea. I loved them like a mother loves her children, with that intensity that aches in the chest and makes us capable of any sacrifice. It was on a morning of seemingly clear skies that everything changed. The sun rose golden over the waters, painting the horizon with hues of honey and amber. The fishermen prepared their nets with the calm of those who know every movement by heart. I floated among the waves, feeling the familiar rhythm of the tide, when something shifted. A different vibration, a whisper in the wind that spoke of danger. Clouds appeared from nowhere, as if summoned by some ancient spell. They were black as a starless night, charged with an energy that made my skin prickle. The wind changed direction 3 times in a few minutes, and I knew something terrible was coming. My heart raced like a war drum, and for the first time in decades, I felt fear. I tried to warn the fishermen, making the waves dance in strange ways, creating patterns any man of the sea would recognize as a sign of danger. But they were already too far from the coast, their boats scattered across the ocean like tiny dots against the vast blue. Some noticed the signs and began rowing back, but others, especially the younger ones, ignored nature's warnings. Then it arrived. The storm didn't come slowly, as ordinary rains do. It exploded over the sea like a bomb of divine fury, transforming the tranquil landscape into a hell of water and wind. The waves grew until they touched the clouds, and the roar of the sea became deafening. Lightning cut through the sky like swords of light, and thunder echoed like diabolical laughter. I moved through the turbulent waters, trying to reach the nearest fishermen. I saw their terrified faces, their eyes desperately searching for the coast that seemed to have vanished. Some of the smaller boats had already capsized, and I could feel the despair of the men struggling against the giant waves. Their strength was like whispers against the scream of the waters. Terror gripped me when I realized I couldn't save them one by one. There were too many, scattered across miles of raging ocean. I needed something more, something that could reach them all at once. That's when I remembered the ancient stories, the legends my mother told about the hidden powers of the Oryxes. Stories about weaving realities, about building bridges between the possible and the impossible. In that moment of absolute despair, watching good men drown in the waters I loved, I made a decision that would change my existence forever. It was no longer enough to be a mere observer, a passive protector. It was time to become an active savior, to use powers I didn't even know I possessed. I closed my eyes and dove deep within myself, searching for that ancestral force I knew existed at my core. I felt a golden energy pulse in my chest, hot as the midday sun, powerful as life itself. It was as if 1,000 suns were born within me, radiating a light that knew no boundaries. When I opened my eyes, my hands glowed with a brilliance that cut through the storm's darkness. It wasn't just physical light, but something deeper, more essential. It was hope materialized. Love transformed into power. I felt I could touch the impossible, that I could weave realities with the same ease as weaving a basket. That's when I saw, in my mind, the solution. A net, not an ordinary net made of ropes and knots, but a net of light, of pure energy, capable of stretching across the entire ocean and guiding the lost fishermen back to safety. It would require more power than I had ever used, more sacrifice than I was accustomed to making. I began to weave with my own essence, each thread of the net formed from pieces of my soul. It felt like giving birth to 1,000 children at once, each movement of my hands creating something new, something that had never existed before. The pain was intense, but there was also a beauty in it, a deep satisfaction in knowing I was creating something that could save lives. The net began to take shape, glowing with a golden light that seemed to come from another world. Each thread vibrated with its own life, pulsing to the rhythm of my heart. I could feel it grow, expand, becoming a part of me while also being something entirely new. It was as if I were creating a new way of loving, a new way of protecting. As I wove, I saw flashbacks of all the fishermen I had known over the years. Their faces blended in my mind, creating a mosaic of humanity that gave me strength to continue. Each knot in the net was a promise. Each thread a demonstration of love. I was literally weaving my devotion into tangible form. The storm seemed to sense what I was doing and intensified its fury. The waves grew even larger, as if the ocean itself were trying to stop me. But I wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop. Lives were at stake. Families depended on these brave men. Children waited for their fathers to return home. Would you like to continue following this transformative journey, diving deeper into the sacred waters of African spirituality? The net is only beginning to take shape, and the mysteries of Oxenmere are just starting to unfold. The net grew in my hands like a living creature, pulsing with golden energy that pierced the storm's darkness. Each thread I wove demanded a piece of my essence. As if I were literally unraveling myself to create something greater, I felt my power waning. But I also felt something new being born, a deep connection to every life I was trying to save. Yemanja, my mother of the deep waters, appeared at my side like an ethereal vision. Her eyes, blue as the deepest ocean, shone with a mix of pride and concern. Daughter. Her voice echoed like the murmur of waves. You are sacrificing too much. This magic could consume your essence forever. I didn't stop weaving. Each movement of my hands was a prayer, each thread a promise. Mother, look at them, I whispered, pointing to the fishermen fighting against the colossal waves. See how Tom holds the helm firmly even as his boat breaks apart. See how Joachim tries to save the companion who fell into the water. They don't give up, and neither can I. The storm roared even louder, as if it had heard my words and taken them as a challenge. Lightning tore through the sky in violent sequences, and the sea rose in waves that seemed to want to swallow the sky itself. I felt fear, yes, but it was a different kind of fear. It wasn't fear of death or pain, it was fear of failing, of not being enough to save those I loved. Yemanja touched my face with fingers that seemed made of sea foam. Then let me help you, my daughter. Don't carry this burden alone, she began to weave beside me, her blue threads mingling with my golden ones, creating a net of indescribable beauty. It was as if two generations of maternal love were uniting for a single purpose. Other presences began to manifest. Oksala, the father of all, appeared as a white light that brought peace even in the midst of chaos. Emonia, in her most ancestral form, emerged from the depths, bringing the wisdom of primordial oceans. Each Orisha who joined us brought a unique quality to the net: strength, wisdom, protection, healing. But I realized something that filled me with an even greater responsibility. They were following me. I, who had always been seen as the least of the Oxens, was leading a divine operation. My specialty in brackish waters, which many considered less important than sweet rivers or deep oceans, proved essential at this moment. Only I could weave a net that worked in both fresh and salt water. As we wove, the forces of nature seemed to organize against us. It wasn't just an ordinary storm, it was as if primordial chaos itself had awakened to challenge us. Cutting winds tried to undo our work, giant waves threatened to drag us into the depths, and lightning aimed directly at our golden light. I began to understand that there was more at stake. This storm was not accidental, it was a test. A cosmic trial to see if I was truly ready to accept my destiny as the protector of transitional waters. Every thread I wove was judged, every knot challenged. Nature wanted to be sure I was worthy of the power I was claiming. Oxenmare, a voice thundered from the heavens, and I recognized the presence of Shonga, the Lord of Lightning. Do you understand what you are doing? This net will not only save these fishermen, it will change your nature forever. You will no longer be the same. I paused for a moment, my hands trembling not from fear, but from an emotion I couldn't name. I looked at the net I was creating. It already covered miles of ocean, each thread glowing with a light that seemed to come from the very heart of existence. I could feel the fishermen through it, their heartbeats, their fears, their hopes. Shonga, I replied, and my voice echoed over the waters with a strength I didn't know I had. I was born for this moment. My entire life in the brackish waters was preparation for this. I cannot be the guardian of transition without understanding what it truly means to transition. I resumed my work with renewed intensity. Each thread I wove now carried not only my essence, but the essence of all the Orishas supporting me. The net became a symbol of divine unity, proof that even gods must collaborate to save human lives. The net was nearly complete when I saw Joachim, the youngest fisherman, swept away from his boat by a monstrous wave. His strong arms fought against the current, but I could see his strength fading. His eyes searched desperately for something to hold onto, any sign of hope in that liquid hell. Without thinking twice, I extended a thread of the net directly to him. The golden thread cut through the water like a luminous serpent, reaching Joachim at the exact moment he was about to give up. When he touched the thread, I felt an electric connection between us, not just physical, but spiritual. For a brief moment, he could see through my eyes, feel the love I held for him and all the fishermen. Oxenmare, he whispered, and his recognition filled me with a joy that was almost unbearable. It wasn't just gratitude I saw in his eyes, but understanding. He realized he wasn't alone. That forces greater than he could imagine were working to protect him. Using the thread as a guide, Joachim began to swim back to his boat. But now the net was doing more than guiding, it was creating a kind of protected current, a zone of calmer waters amid the storm. It was as if I had created a liquid sanctuary, a sacred space where the fury of nature couldn't fully penetrate. Other fishermen began to notice the golden light and move toward it. Tome, with his decades of wisdom on the sea, was the first to understand what was happening. He steered his boat into the net, and I immediately felt his presence through the luminous threads. His gratitude was like a balm for my weary soul. One by one, the fishermen found refuge in my net. Each new rescue cost me more energy, but it also gave me more purpose. I wasn't just an Orisha saving humans, I was creating a new form of love, a new way to connect the divine with the mortal. As the net was completed, I felt something fundamental changing within me. It wasn't just exhaustion or loss of energy, it was a profound transformation of my own nature. Before, I was oxen mare, the Orisha of brackish waters. Now, I was becoming something more, the weaver of destinies, the guardian of transitions, the bridge between despair and hope. My golden skin began to glow with a permanent light, as if I had absorbed a piece of the sun itself. My hair floated around my head like luminous seaweed, and I could feel my eyes now reflecting not just the color of the sea, but the depth of all oceans. Yemanja watched my transformation with eyes full of proud tears. "My daughter," she said, "you have become what you are always meant to be, not just an Orisha of the waters, but an Orisha of hope." The net now stretched across the entire visible horizon, a web of golden light that seemed to hold up the sky itself. Through it, I could feel every fisherman, every heartbeat, every thought of gratitude. It was as if I had become both a person and a force of nature at once. But the transformation wasn't complete. I could feel that I needed to make a final choice, a sacrifice that would permanently seal my new destiny. The storm still raged around the net, waiting to see if I had the courage to make the decision that would change everything. I looked at the fishermen protected in my net, their faces illuminated by the golden light I had created. They trusted me completely, their lives literally in my hands. I felt the weight of that responsibility, but also its beauty. I had never experienced such a clear, pure purpose. The choice before me was simple in its complexity. I could maintain the net temporarily, save the fishermen from this storm, and then return to my normal life, or I could make it permanent, sacrificing my individual freedom to become an eternal guardian of the transitional waters. I closed my eyes and felt all the lives my net would touch in the years to come. I saw future fishermen, lost navigators, people in moments of transition who would need a light to guide them. I saw families reunited, children growing up with living fathers, loves that would endure because I chose to sacrifice my individuality for the greater good. When I opened my eyes, my decision was made. With a final movement of my hands, I sealed the net not only into the fabric of the ocean, but into the fabric of reality itself. It became a part of me, and I became a part of it. We were no longer separate entities, but different aspects of the same cosmic force. The storm, recognizing that I had passed the test, began to calm. The waves gradually subsided, the wind softened, and for the first time in hours, a ray of sunlight pierced the clouds. But my golden light continued to shine, now permanent, an eternal promise of protection for all who sailed these waters. Then the fishermen began to move, their boats following the luminous threads back to the coast. I could see in their faces a mix of relief, gratitude, and something more recognition. They knew something sacred had happened, that they had witnessed a miracle. Are you feeling the same transformation I experienced? This is just the beginning of the journey that will forever change how we view divine protection and unconditional love. I watched in reverent silence as the fishermen followed the golden threads of my net back to the safety of the coast. Each boat that reached the shore was like a personal victory, a confirmation that my transformation was worth it. Tome was the first to touch the sand, and when he knelt on the wet beach, kissing the ground with tears in his eyes, I felt my heart overflow with an emotion that had known some. Joachim leapt from his boat with the renewed energy of youth that had just discovered the true value of life. His eyes immediately sought the horizon, searching for me among the waves. When our gazes met, he raised his hands to the sky in silent gratitude. In that moment, I understood that I had created more than a net. I had created an eternal bridge between the human and the divine. The families waited on the beach, their faces marked by the anguish of hours of waiting. Women who had prayed ceaselessly, children who had asked 1,000 times when their father would return, elders who knew the dangers of the sea all too well. When they saw the first boats arriving, a chorus of joy rose from the beach, a sound that echoed through my net like celestial music. I floated among the waters, now permanently luminous, watching the emotional reunions. Each embrace, each kiss, each tear of relief was like an electric current running through my essence. I had saved not only the fishermen but entire families. Entire communities. My net had become a web of love that connected not just the waters, but the hearts. In the days that followed, I realized that my transformation had altered not only my own nature, but the very fabric of maritime reality. The net I had created was no longer just a magical object. It had become part of the ocean's essence. Fishermen from other regions began reporting sightings of a golden light guiding them in moments of danger. Yemanja came to visit me one serene morning when the waters were calm as a mirror. "Daughter," she said, floating by my side, "do you realize what you have created? Your net doesn't exist only here. It stretches across dimensions, even through time itself. You have become a primordial force." I felt the truth in her words. I could sense the threads of my net extending far beyond what the eyes could see, reaching other shores, other times, other souls lost in their own storms. There were people on distant continents sailing under the protection of a golden light they didn't know the source of. But the price, I whispered, touching my own face that now glowed with permanent light. I could no longer live as before, floating carefree among the waters. I had become an eternal guardian, a responsibility that knew no rest. Yemanja smiled with the wisdom of one who had undergone similar transformations. "The price of true love is always personal freedom, my daughter. But see what you have gained in return." She gestured to the waters around us, where I could see the reflections of my net stretching to the horizon. "You have become immortal not because you cannot die, but because your love has become eternal." As the weeks passed, I began to receive a different kind of call. It wasn't just fishermen in physical danger, but people in all kinds of transitions who needed guidance. A young pregnant woman fearing childbirth, an elder preparing to depart, a couple fighting to save their marriage. All of them, somehow, could feel my presence through the net. I discovered I could manifest not only in the waters, but wherever a transition was happening. I appeared in dreams, in reflections on water, in golden glimmers that emerged in the darkest moments. Each manifestation cost me energy, but it also gave me more purpose, more reason to exist. One night, I received the most challenging call yet. A child had fallen into a river and was being swept away by the current. It wasn't in the ocean, not in my usual waters, but I felt the urgency of the moment. I extended my net through the fresh waters, creating a golden extension that guided the child to a low branch where they could hold on. When the child was rescued, their parents looked at the river and saw a golden glow blinking like a farewell. They never knew my name, had never heard of Oxenmare, but they took home a story about a mysterious light that saved their child. These stories began to spread, creating a network of faith and hope that strengthened my own essence. Months after the storm, Tom returned to the sea. I watched his experienced hands prepare the nets, noting how he looked at the horizon with renewed respect. When he launched his boat into the water, he whispered a prayer that reached me through the golden threads. Oxenmare, protect us once more. Joachim returned too, but transformed. There was a new seriousness in his eyes, a deep understanding of life's fragility and the importance of divine protection. He had become a leader among the younger fishermen. teaching them to read the signs of the sea and respect the forces they couldn't fully comprehend. I realized my transformation had sparked a chain of transformations. Each person I saved carried a spark of my light, spreading it to others who needed it. I wasn't just saving lives, but awakening souls to a greater reality. One afternoon, as I contemplated the sunset painting my net with hues of gold and crimson, Oxala appeared at my side. His presence always brought a deep peace, a sense that everything was as it should be. "Oxen Mare," he said with a voice that echoed like a gentle breeze, "do you now understand why you were chosen for this destiny? It wasn't just because of your power over brackish waters, but because of your ability to transform love itself into a saving force." I smiled, feeling for the first time since my transformation a complete peace. "Father, I understand that I was never just an Orisha of transitional waters. I was always an Orisha of transition itself. My role wasn't just to mediate between sweet and salty, but to teach people that every change can be navigated with love and hope. Today, as I look at my net stretching across oceans and through time, I see that it has become much more than a tool for rescue. It has become a symbol that love can transcend any storm, that hope can illuminate the deepest darkness, that transformation, even when painful, can lead us to a greater purpose. Each golden thread carries stories of people who found the strength to move forward, who discovered light in moments of total darkness, fishermen who returned home, families reunited, souls that found peace in their transitions, all connected by a net of love I wove with my own essence. Sometimes young Orishas visit me, curious about my transformation. They ask if I regret sacrificing my individual freedom. I look at them with the same maternal love I feel for all the beings I protect and reply, true. Freedom isn't in being able to go anywhere, but in choosing to stay where you can make a difference. My net continues to grow, not just in size, but in depth. Each new soul that touches one of my golden threads adds its own light to the web, creating a constellation of hope that shines through dimensions. I am no longer just Oxen Mare. I am the embodiment of the faith that no one navigates the turbulent waters of life alone. When the wind carries my voice across the waters, I whisper to all who can hear, you are not alone. In the wildest waters of life, when storms seem greater than your strength, remember that a golden net waits to guide you. It's not just my net, is the net of all who have chosen to transform their love into service, their pain into wisdom, their experience into protection for others. The stories the fishermen tell about that storm have become legends. They speak of a golden light that dances on the waters, of a maternal presence that protects those who sail in times of uncertainty. But for me, these stories are just the beginning. Every person who hears of my net and feels renewed hope is weaving their own golden thread, contributing to a tapestry of faith that stretches far beyond the oceans. My transformation taught me that true spirituality isn't about seeking power for oneself, but about finding ways to use that power to uplift others. There is no greater or lesser Orisha, only different ways of loving, different ways of serving, different paths to transform suffering into blessing. Today, as I watch young fishermen set out on their journeys, as I see families saying goodbye on the beach, as I feel the anxiety of those navigating the waters of life, I extend my net not only to save them from external dangers, but to remind them that they carry within them the same golden light I use to weave protection. The net of Oxen Mare is not just my creation, it is our collective creation, woven from the golden threads of every moment we choose love over fear, hope over despair, unity over separation. Each of you carries a piece of this net, and when you use your own light to guide others through their storms, you honor the legacy of transformation born on that stormy night. May you always remember, in the most turbulent waters of existence, there is always a golden light waiting to show the way, and sometimes you yourselves are that light for someone who needs guidance. I am Oxen Mare, weaver of destinies, guardian of transitions, and my golden net remains extended for all who need to find their way back home. May my story inspire you to discover your own nets of love and protection. And may you never underestimate the transformative power of choosing to serve something greater than yourself. May the golden light of hope always dance upon the waters of your lives. And may you find in African spirituality the same source of strength and transformation that allowed me to become who I am today. End of Oxum Mare's Journey *******. May this story resonate in your hearts and inspire you to weave your own nets of love and protection in the world. *****.